Before Vecna was a monster, he was a boy with a dangerous mind. His transformation from a disturbed child to the mastermind of the Upside Down is one of the most significant and shocking narrative developments in the history of Hawkins. Our story begins in Nevada with the birth of Henry Creel to Victor and Virginia Creel in the late 1940s. While he was perceived by his father as a deeply sensitive boy, he was not born with his extraordinary gifts. Henry gained his psychic powers around the age of 8 after a bizarre incident. While exploring a desert cave near his childhood home, he was exposed to experimental technology linked to a project replicating the Philadelphia experiment. This cave contained a dark influence that Henry was already acquainted with, the Mind Flayer. The exposure did not just give Henry powers, it fundamentally changed him, altering his blood type and his personality, gradually pushing him toward darkness and establishing a crucial detail. Henry Creel was not born psychic. His abilities were induced by the Mind Flayer itself. He would be haunted by a fear of that desert cave for the rest of his life. Sometime after this incident, Henry's family moved to Hawkins, Indiana, purchasing a large house where Victor and Virginia hoped for a fresh start. Henry, however, was already deeply pessimistic, seeing humanity as a mindless, pathetic joke dictated by the meaningless structure of clocks and calendars. Despite his growing alienation, the young man participated in a high school production, playing the character John in the play Dark of the Moon. During this time, he struggled with his immense psychic powers and a deep desire for acceptance, which led him to fall for his co-star, Patty Newby. His soul was caught between two opposing forces: Patty, who wanted him to use his burgeoning powers for good, and a young Dr. Martin Brenner, who was already interested in Henry and wanted to exploit his abilities for military experiments. It was in the Hawkins house that Henry found something he truly related to: a nest of black widow spiders, which he saw as misunderstood predators who brought order and structure to the ecosystem. This obsession inspired him to draw his own fantastical super predator, a colossal spider-like beast that would later take shape as the Mind Flayer. His contempt for his family and the world grew, and he began to practice his psychokinetic abilities in sinister ways, graduating from making the grandfather clock tick backward to mutilating and killing small animals by reaching into their minds and memories. Henry used his abilities to torment his father, Victor, a World War II veteran, projecting horrifying visions that forced Victor to relive his worst wartime trauma, driving him to madness. Virginia Creel eventually suspected Henry was the source of the horror and made plans to send him to Dr. Brenner for psychiatric treatment, unknowingly handing him over to a man who wanted to exploit him. Feeling utterly betrayed, Henry decided he had to act. On March 14, 1959, Henry used his immense power to end his mother, Virginia, by lifting her into the air, snapping and imploding her eyes. While his father was trapped in a projected nightmare of the war, Henry ended his sister, Alice, in the same brutal fashion. He planned the same for Victor last, but a critical mistake saved his father. The music playing on the radio acted as an anchor to reality, allowing Victor to break free from the hallucination. Having overexerted his immense power, Henry collapsed into a coma. Victor Creel was arrested for the murders and later sent to Penhurst Mental Hospital. The world was told that Henry Creel died a week later, but it was a lie. Henry awoke from his coma to find himself a specimen under the complete control of Dr. Martin Brenner at Hawkins National Laboratory. Brenner tattooed 001 onto Henry's arm, making him the first in a line of psychically gifted children. Furthermore, Brenner used Henry's unique blood to create the others. Other children, like 11, gained their powers via transfusions of Henry's blood, making him the silent progenitor of the entire experiment. Afraid of Henry's true power, Brenner implanted a tiny device in his neck called soteria, which suppressed his abilities and rendered him a prisoner. Stripped of his power and identity, Henry became an orderly, a glorified janitor, forced to attend to the new generation of test subjects, the children Brenner had created in his attempts to replicate Henry. Henry grew bitter, enduring torture from other orderlies at Brenner's command. It was during this period that he met a young, powerful outcast named 11. Henry saw a kindred spirit in her and began subtly mentoring her, telling her not to suppress her negative emotions, but to channel her anger and sadness to make her powers stronger. He was expertly grooming her. On September 8, 1979, Henry initiated his plan. He manipulated Eleven into believing the other subjects and Brenner were planning to kill her. He gave her a key card and convinced her that the Soteria chip in his neck was a tracker that she needed to use her powers to remove. A grateful Eleven obliged. The moment the chip was out, the full terrifying force of Number 1 was unleashed. Henry ended the guards with a flick of his wrist. Revealing his 001 tattoo, he then moved through the lab in an act of pure vengeance, ending every single test subject and staff member in his path. When Eleven confronted him in the Rainbow Room, he explained his past, his belief that humanity was a virus, and asked her to join him as a superior being. Eleven refused, seeing the monster he had become. Enraged by her rejection, Henry attacked. But Eleven was able to draw on a happy memory of her mother's love. In that moment, her power surged beyond his. She slammed him against the wall, and as her power overwhelmed him, she unknowingly tore open a hole in reality, an interdimensional gate. Henry was sucked through the portal, banished to a place far worse than death. Henry Creel was thrown into a primordial dimension of endless storms and red lightning. For what felt like an eternity, the lightning struck him over and over, searing his skin, twisting his body, and transforming him into something monstrous and unrecognizable. The boy was burned away, and the entity known as Vecna began to take shape. He eventually landed in a desolate world, the Upside Down, which he saw as a realm unspoiled by mankind. He explored this dimension, encountering its strange flora and fauna, including the Demogorgons. Then he found the most extraordinary thing, a swirling, storm-like mass of dark particles, a living cloud psychically connected to every creature in the dimension, a raw, untamed hive mind. Vecna, with his immense psychic power, reached out and gave this formless entity a shape born from his childhood obsession, a colossal spider-like monster. He had created the Mind Flayer. He became the brain, the commander, the 5-star general of the hive mind, and the master of the dark dimension. However, it is important to note that his ultimate goals may not fully align with the Mind Flayer, suggesting a complicated dynamic in his ultimate command. Vecna ruled his dark kingdom, waiting. His chance finally came on November 6, 1983, when Eleven made psychic contact with a Demogorgon, creating the Mother Gate at Hawkins Lab. This recontextualizes the entire conflict. The Demogorgon that snatched Will Byers and killed Barb was Vecna's scout. His real move came in 1984 when the Mind Flayer possessed Will Byers and sent an army of Demodogs to attack the lab. It was Vecna pulling the strings, using the Mind Flayer as his puppet to wage war on Hawkins from afar. When Eleven closed the gate, she severed his direct connection, but a fragment of the Mind Flayer was left behind, trapped in Will's body. In 1985, when the Russians secretly opened a new gate beneath Starcourt Mall, that dormant piece of Vecna reawakened. The flayed, the melted bodies, and the grotesque spider monster that terrorized the mall was all him, his second attempt to create a physical foothold in our world. That battle ended with a critical victory for Vecna. The spider monster bit Eleven, infecting her and causing her to lose her powers, neutralizing his only real threat. By March 1986, Vecna had a new plan. He had learned how to create his own gates, potentially by studying Eleven's powers after she was bitten. He began targeting teenagers in Hawkins who were suffering from intense trauma and guilt, invading their minds with psychic assaults, haunting them with visions of their worst fears and a recurring image of his grandfather clock counting down their final hours. He fed on their pain, pulling them into his mind lair and killing them in the same way he had killed his family, breaking their bodies and gouging out their eyes. Crucially, each murder ripped open a new, small gate to the Upside Down in the real world. His ultimate goal was to open 4 gates, enough to merge the dimensions and bring his dark world crashing into ours. His first victims were Chrissy Cunningham, a popular cheerleader secretly battling trauma, Fred Benson, haunted by survivor's guilt, and Patrick McKinney, dealing with an abusive father. His fourth target was Max Mayfield, still reeling from the guilt and trauma of watching her stepbrother Billy sacrifice himself. She was the perfect candidate for his psychic assault. The Hawkins gang realized music could be an anchor to reality, and in one of the most iconic scenes, they temporarily saved Max by blasting her favorite song, breaking his trance. The final showdown was an all-out multi-dimensional war. The Hawkins crew devised a plan. Max would act as bait to distract Vecna's consciousness, while Nancy, Steve, and Robin entered the Upside Down to attack his vulnerable physical body in the Creel house attic. Simultaneously, Eddie and Dustin would distract the swarms of Demobats. Unbeknownst to them, they had two more sets of allies. In Russia, Hopper, Joyce, and Murray fought the hive mind by killing the Demogorgons in the Soviet prison, and in a sensory deprivation tank, 11 piggybacked into Max's mind to fight Vecna on his own turf. Inside Max's mind, 11 confronted Vecna. Henry overpowered her and revealed his final secret. He wasn't made a monster, it was his choice, and it was she who made him what he was by banishing him to the Upside Down. Just as he was about to kill Max, Mike's loving words from the real world reached 11, giving her the strength to break free. In Russia, Murray torched the prison's Demogorgons, sending agony through the entire hive mind and weakening Vecna. This gave Nancy, Steve, and Robin the opening they needed. They stormed the attic and attacked Vecna's physical body, setting him on fire and blasting him with a shotgun. The assault from all fronts was too much. Vecna's physical body was blown out of the attic window and crashed to the ground, but when the trio went outside to confirm the kill, the body was gone. Even in defeat, he had won. The attack on Max, though interrupted, was enough. Her heart stopped for over a minute, technically making her his fourth victim. The fourth and final gate ripped open through the Creel house attic, and all four gates began to spread across Hawkins, converging in the town center and creating a massive fiery chasm. 11 used her powers to restart Max's heart, saving her life but leaving her in a coma, her consciousness seemingly gone. The Upside Down had begun its invasion of Hawkins, leaving the main group focused on finding and defeating Vecna once and for all. This is the definitive, horrifying timeline of Henry Creel's transformation into the ultimate enemy, Vecna. If you want more deep dives into the secrets of the Upside Down and what comes next, like this video and subscribe.